Before there were maps, there were two worlds. The world you know, and the shining realm of Kaf, hidden just beyond it. A kingdom of fairies and giants and magic. On the night he was born, an emperor 1,000 miles away woke from a dream. A black crow that stole his crown, and a bright hawk that flew out of the west to win it back. And the wise men said, "That hawk is a child, and he will shake the thrones of the world." That same night, the fairies of Kaf carried the sleeping baby across the sky. They blessed him, and they touched his eyes, so that nothing hidden could ever hide from him again. His name was Hamza. He would become the bravest champion the world had ever seen. Strong as a lion, a warrior against 100 armies, a prince who lost his heart to a princess, and at his side, the cleverest trickster who ever lived. Amir, a thief of 1,000 disguises, and the truest friend a hero ever had. Together, they crossed burning deserts and enchanted mountains. They faced sorcerers and giants and dragons and the demon armies of Kaf. They saw wonders no eye had ever seen. Thrones that flew, cities of gold, gardens that bloomed in the dark, courage, magic, love, and laughter. One of the greatest stories ever told, carried for 1,000 years. And now, it is yours. This is the Dastan of Amir Hamza. That before there were maps, there were two realms. The realm of the world, which you know, and the realm of Kaf, which knows you. And one night, between them, an emperor dreamed. Mark this man well. Naushervan, king of kings of the 7 realms, who ruled the world from Ctesiphon and could not rule his own fear. Every mercy in him was real. Not one could hold its ground against a dream. His name was Naushervan, king of kings of the 7 realms, and he slept beneath a crown that hung above his bed like a second moon. And in his dream a crow came out of the east, ragged as smoke, and lifted that crown from the air and flew. His court did nothing. His courtiers stood with the faces of statues. And then, out of the west, small against the sun, came a hawk. And the hawk struck the crow apart in a single pass, and laid the crown down gently upon the sleeping king's brow. Naushervan woke with a cry, his hands at his head. In the morning he called for the 2 men who stood always at the foot of his throne. And beside the throne, Vizier, the sage, the reader of stars and dice, calm as deep water, loyal past any bribe. He knew the whole of the tale before a word of it was spoken. On his right, the old vizier, Vizier, calm as deep water, a cup of diviner's dice at his belt. Note the other one, Baktak, never the sword, always the whisper. Cowardice and malice sharpened by a clever tongue. Where he could not wound, he would poison. And half a step nearer the royal ear, Baktak, sleek and hungry and patient. "Read it," said the king, "and read it true. My crown was in a stranger's claws." The old vizier cast his dice and did not hurry. "A raider will rise in the east," he said, "and your throne will taste his hand. That is the crow. But in the west, in Mecca of the Arabs, a boy is to be born, to the house of Hashim. That boy is the hawk. He will break the raider and set the crown back upon your head." But Baktak leaned closer and said, "Silk over a blade. Or, being able to take a crown off a crow, he may in time learn how crowns come off altogether. And there, children, in that one moment, you may see the whole tale to come. The wise man who reads the truth, and the small man who poisons it, and the king who believes them both. Go to Mecca, Kavaja," said the king. "Find me this hawk while he is still in the egg. Bind him to me, with honours, with gold. Let him be mine before he is anyone's." So the vizier went, and a caravan of imperial splendour camped outside a city of plain stone, and Buzurg-Mer was received by the chief of that city, a white, bearded man, upright, unmoved by all that Persian gold. A drummer walked the streets and cried a decree that every boy born in that season should be brought forward to be named and pensioned as a servant of the king of Iran. And they were brought. First, the grandson of the house was laid before the old vizier, and Buzurg-Mer cast his dice once and stopped, and cast them again, his hands not quite steady, for he had seen what sat upon them, plain as daylight. "Kings of the 7 realms will pay this child tribute," he said softly, and here is the hawk himself, Amir Hamza of Mecca, Sahib Kiran, lord of the auspicious conjunction, the champion the stars had promised, fearless by nature, merciful by reflex, and true to his word, though it cost him the world. The world, and Kaf beside it, will bend beneath his hand. And he kissed the infant's brow, and gave him his name. Hamza. This is Mukbil, the faithful, the quiet archer who would stand at Hamza's shoulder to the end. He noticed everything, said little, and never once missed his mark. Then a slave brought his own newborn son, and the vizier named him Mukbil, the faithful. "His arrows will not miss," he said, "and his heart will not stray." And last of all came a camel driver, carrying a motherless child, the mother lost in the bearing of him that very night. And this is Amar Ayah, prince of tricksters, greedy and shameless to all the world, and truer than iron to Hamza alone. Half of everything that follows will be his doing. Buzurg-Mer fed the infant a fingertip of sweet sherbet, and in the same motion the baby slipped the signet ring clean off the old man's finger. The vizier looked at his bare hand, and then he laughed until his eyes ran. "Mark the hour," he said. "His first theft, and from a vizier of Iran. He will be a torment to kings and a plague upon the proud. Greedy, shameless, faithless to every man alive, save one. To Hamza he will be truer than iron. His name is Amar. A hero, an archer, and a thief. 3 boys, 1 milk, 1 cradle-room. Remember the thief, children. Half of all that follows is his doing, and now the tale must cross the edge of the world. For in that same week, in the realm of Kaf, in a court that made the emperor's palace look like a village of mud, far off, in the realm of Kaf, sat Shapal, king of the fairies upon the throne of Solomon, stately as the noon sun, and helpless as any father before a daughter's grief. In the garden of Iram, upon the throne of Solomon, a fairy king sat, radiant as noon, Shapal, lord of the Paris, and the Jinn and the Devs, and a daughter was born to him, and they named her Asman Pari, the sky fairy, and his diviner cast her stars, and his joy died in his beard. "She will reign, my king," said the diviner. "Kaf will be hers. But in her 18th year the Devs will rise, and this throne will burn, and the one who quenches that fire is not of Kaf. He is a human child, born in Mecca, 6 days old, tonight." The fairy king was silent a long while, and his daughter, Asman Pari, the sky fairy, the queen of Kaf to come, bound to Hamza by a horoscope written at her birth, she would love him as a storm loves the shore, and hold him by love and by war. And then he said softly, "Bring me the cradle." And so, children, this is the wonder of that night. 4 fairy-born crossed the dark sky between the worlds, and lifted the sleeping child, cradle and all, out of an upper room in Mecca, and bore him over moonlit deserts and over mountains of impossible emerald into the court of Kaf. And the fairy king lifted the human baby and kissed him, and drew the coal of Solomon along his infant eyelids, so that never, as long as he lived, would the unseen be able to hide itself from him. For 7 nights the child was nursed on the milk of Pari and Jinn and Dev and Ghoul, so that fear might be burned out of his heart before he had words to name it. And they set the fairy daughter's cradle beside his, 2 infants, 1 thread of fate binding them. "What 18 years will not, my king?" said the diviner, watching the 2 cradles. 18 more will not untie." Then the cradle was carried home, wrought now of emerald and ruby, glowing with stones that shine in the dark, and set softly back into the upper room in Mecca. And the old nurse woke and saw it, and was wise enough to ask no questions. So the emperor set his mark upon the boy, and Kaf set its milk in him, and neither one asked the boy his opinion. He would spend his whole life, children, giving it. Sleep now. The lamp is low, and tomorrow I will tell you how 3 boys of Mecca grew, and how heaven itself came down to hand them their gifts.